So what we want to do at this point is to turn it over to the President of the National Bar Association. She's going to say a few words. Before she gets up to say a few words, let me just tell you a little bit about her, because she's too modest and humble to tell you about herself. She's the president, as I pointed out, of the Bar Association, the largest and the oldest association of black lawyers, black judges, black law students, black law professors, not only in the country, but actually in the Caribbean and in a couple African countries. About 70,000 members of this large and old organization. She's a partner of Thompson Coburn, as I pointed out, the largest law firm in St. Louis, and was the first African American in the history of that large American law firm to go from associate to partner. Now, this is not only a black person, but a female black person, and a female black person in the South. What does that tell you? That tells you that she's definitely quite impressive. And I really like her not only because of that stuff I just mentioned, but she has a master's degree in African American history. Now, how many black lawyers do you know? How many lawyers, period, do you know that have a master's degree in African American history? She holds an honorary doctorate degree in divinity from the New Freedom Bible College. She's won a number of awards. I won't bore you with them all, but you name an organization that deals with lawyers, and she won some award from one of those organizations. Without further ado, National Bar Association President Pamela J. Means, Esquire.
Yes, sir. I don't need a microphone. I'm from East St. Louis. I bring you greetings on behalf of the National Bar Association. I'm not going to prolong time. I have been looking forward to this moment, to have this discussion and this conversation. This is something that is serious to me. One, I'm excited to be here to meet Brother Coard. I've never seen a brother more dedicated and more committed to this cause than this brother. There are some people that are purposed to do this, and some people that do this because it's their profession. When I met him over the air, it was clear to me that in his blood ran justice. So I couldn't wait to come here and partner with him in order to do this. Again, I bring you greetings on behalf of the National Bar Association, founded in 1925 in Iowa City, Iowa, when the American Bar Association would not allow African American lawyers to join their association. 11 men and 1 woman did something that you wouldn't find most lawyers doing today. They didn't run out and file a lawsuit. They didn't stage a march or a sit-in or a protest. They just started their own, and they called it the National Bar Association, with its primary mission to protect the civil and political liberties of all. Now, I'm going to tell you something. The Bar Association has been asleep when it came to this issue. And so I came today first to apologize to you. Because had we been doing what we should have been doing as lawyers, what Mr. Coard was doing, maybe we wouldn't be at this point now. We would be further ahead talking about the solutions instead of just defining the problem. But what happens when a lion wakes up? When a lion wakes up, it's dangerous because it's difficult to put the lion back to sleep. Charles Hamilton Houston said that a lawyer, that a black lawyer, is either a social engineer or a parasite on society. I came to tell you we may have been parasites, but in 2014, we woke up and we are some social engineers. I'm gonna get out of your way because this is such an important topic that yes, I did probably run some red lights. And since I knew you would be on the air, you would be okay, because I didn't want to waste a minute. We represent over 60,000 lawyers nationwide. What I'm most excited about is that we've brought home and reclaimed some lawyers like Mr. Coard. I will tell you that prior to this year, he was not a member of the National Bar Association. He had left us because we had left our mission. I am so proud to have with me my regional director for this area. Please stand. She feels bad because she said, I didn't organize it soon enough, but I told her, sister, whatever is designed and purposed to happen, it happens at the time and the purpose is designed to happen. And whoever is present are the ones that are present to receive the knowledge. So thank you so much for coming. Let's have a conversation and let's find some solutions to this problem. Oh, I'm from Missouri, but I was born and reared in East St. Louis.
Let's give the President a big round of applause. And by the way, I know Barrister's President Galloway has a couple of other obligations, so she might have to step out a little early, but we want to thank her for being here.
Yes.
Let's kick off tonight's program with number 3 on the agenda, and make sure that you get a copy of that so you can follow us. I'm going to briefly introduce each of the panelists, and I'm not going to read their resume or their bio because we'd be here until next Thursday. Because they got so much going on that's impressive, but I just want to highlight some of the great stuff that these attorneys have done and that this police official has done. And we want to get through everybody. Let me start off by introducing to you my good friend, Brother Qawi Abdul-Rahman. And obviously everybody here, these attorneys at least, are experienced trial lawyers. So they know the answers to any question you can imagine in regard to how the criminal justice system works. He's Brother Abdul-Rahman is not only bright because obviously he's a lawyer, but he's a Cheney grad. So actually really stop right there because somebody who went to Cheney and graduated, quite impressive. He's with the L. Shabazz and Harris law firm. He's been with them since 2002. Prior to that, he was actually a contract advisor for the NFL. That's the National Football League. So it's really important to have black lawyers dealing in situations like that. Before that, he was a public defender, but not here in Philadelphia, actually in Dade County, Florida. Now you're talking about troubled places for black folks. We got Missouri and we got Florida. So these are two persons who can really give you some great information. He's got a lot going on. Let's give Brother Qawi Abdul-Rahman a big round of applause. Next is a gentleman, all I have to say is that he used to be a homicide prosecutor. He's one of the few homicide DAs that beat me in a murder case. So that's what I really need to say about him. Let's move on. We don't have much more to say. But I got to be honest, my client did do it, so that kind of helped him in this case. But anyway, he's actually managed his own law practice for the last couple of years, and he specializes in criminal, civil defense, as well as traffic matters. He's approved by the Philadelphia court system to handle major felonies, including homicides. He also does a lot of work, and this is important, the Philadelphia Mental Health Court, helping those who can't help themselves. He's not limited to Philadelphia. He actually practices in a number of counties, Delaware County, Montgomery counties, and other counties. And he gets props for that because anything on the other side of Philadelphia is Mississippi. When you go to his courtrooms, and he's there in the belly of the beast doing his thing. He has successfully tried in excess of nearly 100 jury trials and 5,000 non-jury trials. He spent most of his career as an assistant DA right here in Philadelphia. And I mentioned before the homicide unit, the elite homicide unit, but also in the HO unit. That's the habitual offender. I could talk more about him. He's done some great work. He is doing some great work. And he's going from the bad guys, the DAs, to the good guys, the defense attorneys. Let's give Leon Goodman a big round of applause.
And next, we'll see Leon on the bench too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next on our list is the gentleman you just heard from, Wille Nattiel. I like Wille because I was actually held in contempt 3 times by judges, and I went straight to Wille, and he got me out of trouble. So Wille is a great lawyer for that reason alone. He graduated from law school, not just graduated from law school as we all did, but with honors, and that's pretty difficult for any law student. In addition to that, in his undergraduate degree, he got a BS in economics and mechanical engineering. He's probably the brightest one up here. I mean, that's some heavy stuff. All right. Founder and senior partner, president, CEO of the law firm, which is the successor to Nattiel, Skipper, Cardwell, Hughes, and Smiler. And they handled every type of legal issue you can imagine. Mr. Nattiel was also a staff attorney in the major trial unit of the Public Defender's Office. He's involved in numerous committees of the Philadelphia Bar Association. He's involved in many mentoring programs such as Temple Leap and numerous others. He's the instructor in a number of PBA, Pennsylvania Bar Association, CLE courses. That's where lawyers need certain credits to keep their license. Well, Wille Nattiel is one of the instructors in that. He's received many awards, and I'm not even going to go through them all. I just said let's give a big round of applause to Wille, Lee, and the next gentleman, First Deputy Commissioner Richard J. Ross Jr. I don't like him only because he makes it hard for me to attack cops. I mean, he's such a nice guy. He's such a gentleman. So the first time he and I were in a panel, I wanted to fight with him, representing the cops, and attack him. But he's such a gentleman, and not just a gentleman, he's actually committed, like many cops are, to the community. And it took me a while to appreciate that there are many good cops, and he's certainly one of them. And he and I have become friends since then, and each time we're in panels, we might disagree on certain issues, but we have this mutual respect. And for me, and by the way, I want this part that I'm saying good about the cop, it's got to be edited, because nobody can hear me say these good things about police officers. I got to maintain my image. But First Deputy Police Commissioner Richard J. Ross Jr. is not just a gentleman, he's a great police officer. He's been with the Philadelphia Police Department since 1989 and was appointed to the rank of Deputy Commissioner in 2005, and subsequently to First Deputy Commissioner in 2008. He currently holds the civil rank of Chief Inspector. He's worked in a number of units, and these are impressive units like Special Operations, Detective Bureau, Internal Affairs, and in his capacity as First Deputy Commissioner of Field Operations, he has served units under his command, including Homeland Security, Community Relations, that's why he's so good in dealing with the community, and the Mayor's Security Detail. He's right here from Philly, born and raised in Philly, and has earned a reputation both in and outside the department for his fairness and professionalism. Now that's on his bio, and usually people put puffed up information on their bio, but that sentence there which says he has earned a reputation both in and outside the department for his fairness and professionalism, that is so true. He's committed to the community. He's won a number of awards and honors. Let's give a big round of applause to First Deputy Police Commissioner. And finally, and it's really hard for me to admit this is another DA that I'm about to, current DA, and soon we're going to be calling it something else, I hope, and we'll talk about that later.
You're right.
And this is the only one of two other DAs who beat me in a homicide case. If I lost 2 in my career, these are the only 2, and the 99 others are not guilty. But this is Deborah Watson-Stokes, graduated from Michigan State University, was the director of the Office of Black Affairs and president of Delta Sigma Theta. She's also and president of the National Black Student Association within the Law School, and national vice president of the Mid-Atlantic region of the Black Law Students Association. Prior to attending law school, she was actually a teacher of mathematics right here in Philadelphia, actually in Detroit, Michigan. And because it's pointed out from Michigan, and worked at the United States House of Representatives Judiciary Committee on Civil Rights. For the past 24 years, it's got to be a misprint because she's only like 36 years old. But for the past 24 years, it says Miss Deborah Watson-Stokes has served as an assistant DA in Philadelphia and worked in the elite homicide unit for the past 13 years and handled over 100 jury trials. She's currently the assistant chief of the Southwest Zone and received numerous awards, including the Philadelphia DA's 300 Spartan Award just a couple years ago for being an outstanding trial attorney, and the 2014 Philadelphia Coalition Award for victim advocacy. She's a great panelist along with the other panelists. Give everybody a big round of applause. And we're going to keep things moving. I noticed a few folks came in after you got started. Make sure you get the program for tonight. They're right here on this first row. After you come in, grab the program so you know where we are. What we're going to do at this point is we're going to start at my left with the president of the National Bar Association, President Means. We're at number 4 on the agenda, a 3 or 2 minute opening statement from the panelists. And what we're going to ask each of them to do is to spend a couple minutes just talking about the criminal justice system as they see it, what they like about it, what they dislike about it, what could be done to improve it. So we're going to go down the road here, just talking about whatever you want to talk about for a couple minutes in connection with the criminal justice system, keeping in mind the topic of tonight, know your rights, because it could save your life. We're going to start off with NBA President Pamela J. Means, Esquire.
We rely on the police to keep us safe and to treat us fairly, regardless of our race, nationality, or religion. But sometimes, the police go too far, using excessive force, engaging in racial profiling, or legally restricting individuals of exercising their rights and being citizens in the areas they live. There exists a deep-rooted mistrust of the police and the criminal justice system because so many tragedies by the police, ignorance or folly that subject others to the system have caused them to believe that instead of protecting them, that police now are profiling them. Minority communities have suffered decades of over-criminalization with policies such as broken windows, which theorizes that where there are signs of disorder, such as a small broken window, proliferation or selling of cigarettes, that you better stop those criminals now, or else they're inclined to commit bigger crimes. So minor infractions are treated as major crimes, and when more and more behaviors are criminalized, there are more occasions for police to enforce a monopoly or to legitimize violence, especially in the African American community. Often I've sat on panels with individuals who are in law enforcement, and they say the reason we over-police the Black community is because that's where all the crime is committed. We over-police because there's an over-exaggeration of crime. But statistics say that often, that when you look at situations like the white guy in South Carolina who walked into a Walmart and stole a cash register, terrorized the whole Walmart community, led the police on a high-speed chase. After they stopped him, got into a struggle with the police, grabbed the police gun 3 times. All he got was a black eye, and he lived to tell about it. But a brother in Ohio, in the store, on the phone with his woman, playing with a toy gun, immediately gets shot without any questions asked. It leaves the community asking, is there a difference? When a white man can point a gun at a whole community and the cops calm him down, but a 13-year-old boy is playing with a toy gun by himself in a park and he's shot down, that leaves you wondering, what is the difference? The difference is the National Bar Association doesn't have, and be clear about this, a war against the police, because I want some of those police that are skilled in de-escalation of force. We have a war against bad police. Like we have a war against bad lawyers, bad teachers, and bad doctors. Anytime there is a bad, it will spoil the bunch. And so what we decided, even before there was a Michael Brown situation, I became installed as president on July the 31st. But there was a brother out of Texas that came to me. And Texas, by the way, is the #1 killing capital of the world, not just in people that are assigned to the death penalty, but when it comes to police brutality, it's the number one in the world. He came to me and he said, President-elect Means, when the Gardner situation happened, he said, police brutality is an epidemic in America. And if black lawyers don't do something about it, then the degrees on which the paper on which our degrees are written isn't worth anything. And he said, we need to do something now. He said, let's have a town hall at our meeting. And we were in Atlanta, Georgia. I said, okay, let's do it. So I called the brother who was the chair of the criminal law section, 23-year veteran prosecutor. And I said, I want to have a town hall meeting. He said, absolutely, it is a problem. We got together and they started to educate me. See, I'm not a criminal defense lawyer. I'm a corporate lawyer. And they began to educate me on this issue. And what they told me is that African-American males are 9 times more likely to be killed by the police because there's something called shoot to kill instead of shoot to stop. That there is an escalation of force in our community instead of a de-escalation. What do you mean by that? When a white guy can walk into a theater because he saw a Batman movie and he kills over 12, injures over 58, but they calm him down and he's on trial. Or when a white man walks into a congresswoman rally, kills a federal judge, kills a little girl, injures the congresswoman, and they don't shoot him, they calm him down. That tells you that there is something different, some fear that's at the base of what's going on. So I said to these skilled lawyers, what do we do about it? They said the best thing that could ever happen is for the federal government to come in and open up these practice and procedures. So well, let's call Eric Holder. Let's get him in. They said it don't work that way. The federal government doesn't initiate an investigation. They must have proof that there is a pattern and a practice of a behavior. I said, well, let's submit it to them. They said, there's no national database. What do you mean there's no national database? So what we decided to do was to target 25 states because I wanted to do something I can accomplish in this year. And we decided that we would target the 25 states that had a large population of African Americans and had a large statistics of police brutality incidents. And we decided to send open record requests to those police departments. And we didn't just want to get information as it related to traffic stops. We wanted to see police brutality cases from the time of the stop to incarceration. And we wanted to analyze that information, put it in a report, and hand it to Eric Holder and say, these are some of the states and some of the police departments that you need to seize. But here's some egregious cases that you need to deal with right now. I then said to them, but that's gonna take us a while to do that. That's a bunch of research. What can we do in the meantime to ensure that my 13-year-old son is not mistaken by somebody else as one of those threats who may kill somebody, or if there's a buck in his pocket, they may think it's a gun. So we started this Know Your Rights, because it would save your life. And we started traveling around to the 25 cities and started to talk about how it is you should interact with the police. Every police officer isn't bad. Every police officer isn't but there are some. And we want police officers to join us and say, bad behavior is not acceptable at all. Because that's what we do to lawyers. We say if they're bad lawyers, we don't want them a part of our practice. And so we go around and we educate. And I'm committed to go to everyone. Why? Because I don't want you coming to St. Louis to march with me when my son is in that predicament. Because then the lawyer side of me is not going to come out. The East St. Louis side of me is going to come out. And it's going to be dangerous. In addition, we also understand that you can educate, you can gather that information, but the real change comes in changing the law. Because the 1982 case says, and I know a lot of you guys probably know this already, because there's a lot of education that goes around this, but people in Missouri didn't quite get this. I tried to tell them that the likelihood that Darren Wilson would be indicted was slim to none. That 98% of the time, police officers that are charged with abuse cases are not indicted by a grand jury. And it's not because every grand jury is racist. It's not because every jury is racist. It's because the law is flawed. The Supreme Court said that a police officer may elevate force to that degree that he or she believes is reasonable if he believes his or her life is in danger. And to stop that danger, they can use appropriate force. That's the reason why the Bar Association said, look, Congress, pass a law that defines what it means to elevate force, what it means for excessive force, and subscribe some training to it. Pass a camcorder law and put some penalties to it if somebody tampers with it, and then make it a felony for a police officer to actually see another officer commit police brutality and do nothing about it. Sister, you and I went into the 7-Eleven. I told you we were going there to rob it, and I killed somebody. Guess what? We both going to jail for murder. Me for murder, you for felony murder. But we recognize that sometimes we can't get Congress to do what we want them to do. So there are some laws that we're pushing on the state level, and we're saying tell your state representatives to pass the law that says independent investigations and independent prosecutors when it comes to any shooting involved with police brutality. We've drafted the laws. They're on the website. You don't even have to ascribe them to us. Just download them. And if the people you elect are not willing to pass it, you got the power of the pink slip. And we don't use it enough. On a local level, tell your officials immediately to pass a law that requires stricter mental health testing, that requires mandatory monthly diversity training, and mandatory de-escalation of force training. Look, when a man in St. Louis sees an animated character in a kid, and he sees Hulk Hogan, there is something wrong with that individual. That means not only have we failed that gentleman, but the system failed him. And so we're trying to find solutions. And so in these forums, we're not trying to attack, but I'll tell you that sometimes I have found, and I know my 3 minutes is about up, sometimes what I found is this. I sat on a panel with a police chief from Arkansas, and immediately the brother thought my goal was to attack him. So when I came in the room, he said, you're talking about this and you're talking about that, but what are you doing about education? So I whipped out my sheet and I said, brother, this is what we're doing. We have a pro bono program where we represent African-American children at disciplinary hearings for free. We have this and we have that, we have this, but that don't result in death, and this does. At the end of the forum, this is what the brother said, and if any white cop would have said it, he would have been lynched and in jail. He said to the crowd, you ought to become active and do something about yourself, because I'm tired of scraping your children off the floor. I looked at the brother and said to him, don't you ever walk into another forum and disrespect your people like you just did. And then he looked at me and I said, oh, am I acting ignorant? Because that's what you've done all night. And it's not acceptable. At some point, as a group, we gotta have what is called a kitchen table conversation, where it's not acceptable. If this was going on in the Jewish community, trust me when I tell you, it wouldn't take 496 killings a year for them to shut it down. It would happen at killing number 2. So let me school you and tell you, ain't none of us on first, ain't none of us on second, and ain't none of us arrived. We all just in it together, trying to find a solution. So we may be called the National Bar Association, but we just trying to do our little part in this little war, in what is America's new civil right, police brutality.
Let's get ready. And she took what's known as presidential prerogative. Nobody else has that, so everybody stop 3 minutes. The president can do that, nobody else can. We're going to keep things moving. Next, Brother Abdul-Rahman giving you his take on the criminal justice system, his take on knowing your rights because it could save your life. Let's give Brother Abdul-Rahman a round of applause.
When I received the invitation, it took me some time to think about, in fact, what is the rights that you have? Because we all hear about this Constitution that we're so proud of here in America. Now, I was a biology major, so I was pretty good in math and science in college. I wanted to be a veterinarian. I ended up in law school because 2 of my friends in Richard Island ended up either in jail or dead. 2 lawyers come from Richard Island Projects, me and Ron White, and he's dead. 1,500 units. So I don't know what rights are. And I didn't come here to talk about how we should talk to the police. Because talking to the police really is irrelevant. We talk about this issue, that issue, all that sounds good. But if you shovel snow and the person's parked in your spot and you knock on that door and say, excuse me, sir, your car is in my spot. What's the difference then? Woo, pull over. Sir, do you know you ran that light? The response might be the same. F you, I'm not doing nothing and I didn't do nothing. So do we have rights or do we need to know how to talk to each other? It's not about de-escalating the problems because the commissioner can talk to you more than I can. In the 6th district, like I said, I grew up in Richard Island. They have something that's called sectors. I never knew what the hell a sector meant until I had a cop on the stand talk about this sector. Well, sector to me don't sound good. So when you get that sector call across the phone or the airwaves, do you put the gorilla suit on? So when you get there to 10th and Brown, you ready. So whether I'm yes sir and a no sir, it doesn't matter. So knowing your rights is not the issue. It's knowing where you are when you stop is the issue. Because if you're stopped at 10th and Brown, the response might be different than if you're stopped at 10th and Market. When you're stopped in Cheltenham Township, it may be different than if you're stopped in Logan. So knowing our rights really depends on knowing how to speak, because it shouldn't be something that comes new to you. If it's new to you, it's going to be a problem for you. Don't let it be a problem for you, because when it's a problem for you is when we have to call our sister to come march.
Now, baby, I'll march. I do
How they want to call it. But what we better start doing is understanding that we need to learn to talk to each other first, because the police, no matter how crazy they may be, we can't be as crazy.
Yes, that's right.
And I can tell you something, I just had a nice incident the other day with a police officer. And you know, I'm not the nicest guy when the police stop me either. I watched a nice white couple walk into the Lowe's on Saturday. I used the gym there. So me and a couple of other brothers, one was dressed in a thobe, and the rest of us had sweatpants on. The white couple walked right by to the front door of the Lowe's, no problem. I don't know what the hell made him ask me, what am I doing? So you know what, I said, I'm minding my damn business. And I kept it moving. But when he said what he said to me afterwards, I said, well, get me a white shirt out here, because I had you in court 2 weeks ago. When I had you on the stand and my client was let go, your face was beat red like it is now, because he realized who I was then. That's what we have to understand about knowing your rights. Thank you.
Let's give Brother Abdul-Rahman a big round of applause. And we're hearing some good stuff, and I hope you folks are jotting it down, putting it on your smartphone, or memorizing this stuff, because you're hearing from Pamela Means talk about escalating or de-escalating, which is very important. And then you're hearing from Brother Abdul-Rahman talking about understanding where you are, separate from understanding your rights. So far, we're 2 for 2. Let's keep it moving. Attorney Leon Goodman. Let's give him a round of applause.
When Mr. Coard first asked me, I called him Mike, so I'll just say Mike. I actually paused because a lot of the events over the last year have come into play in terms of the view of the world that many people have, including myself. I was raised in a family of law enforcement. My father's here today. He was a police officer in the U.S. military, and my older brother is still a deputy sheriff in Chatham County, South Carolina, Georgia. Having been a prosecutor as long as I was, you might think that everything is completely black and white. But one of the things, and the reason why I became a prosecutor, is because I was a child, again, like my esteemed colleague here, of Philadelphia, born and raised under the Rizzle. So my impression of police came from that. My parents taught me, when you get stopped, this is what you do, it's not to die.
That's right.
One of the reasons I became a prosecutor was because the perception of the system wasn't fair. Having gone through and the years, one of the things that I happened to see is that oftentimes when I was a DA walking into the room, that would immediately change the entire concept of the room. Not just for the person that was accused, but for those that were victims of crime. Because they had the view that, you know what, we got a black prosecutor, maybe it'll be just a little bit more fair. As I met people like Mike and Mr. Nattiel, as I was growing as a prosecutor, these were the men who made it a point to show you what the other side could see. And for me, it was eye-opening because I admit, my parents sheltered me. I didn't see a lot of things, but as I grew older, seeing friends that went to jail, friends that died in high school, elementary school, meeting attorneys like this, it made me realize that, you know what? Things aren't always what they seem. And during my time at the DA's office, and Ms. Watson-Stokes, she'll tell you this as well, especially in my experience under Lynn Abraham, I was able to say, Judge, this isn't right. And make those differences in terms of questionable cause that I saw that police had done. And again, not all police are bad. Let me never be the one to say that. I have police in my family. But you know what? People are people. And as was mentioned, a lot of it does come into play. How you address, how you talk. But you know what? It's a two-way street. Let me repeat that. It's a two-way street. So no matter what you say, it still comes back to police training and how they're going to react. It shouldn't be a difference if you get stopped at 10th and Norris or 10th and Market. Because you know what? You're a U.S. citizen at both. And one of the things that I've seen, having gone into the defense side, many of my clients, and I do a lot of work in juvenile, primarily because the kids, they're the future. They're the ones that need to be saved. And when I talk to them, they don't know. They don't understand what I can and can't do. What a response is that'll get you killed, that'll get you beat, as opposed to a response that will result in no issues. So part of the reason I'm here is I have a unique view, on both sides, having done both sides. And if I can just enlighten people in terms of how to survive that initial interaction, to get to the point where one of us can represent you. Because ultimately, you want to be in the courtroom, because in the courtroom, you're not dead. Plain and simple. On the street, an officer has the power of life and death. And whether or not you agree, and you probably are not going to agree with them, get to the court. And if I can help you get to that point, tonight was well worth it.
Yes.
Where is it? Could you stand up, sir? Certainly appreciate that, and again, I hope you remember what's being said by each of the panelists because they're saying some really profound stuff. What Leon said, everything he said hit me, but most important was he made the point that we all have rights. So it really shouldn't matter where you are, suburbs or in the hood. Your rights should be respected. We're going to keep things moving. Next up, Wille Nattiel Jr. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Before we start off, I'm going to say from the start, I'm going to take 4 minutes on because I'm the oldest panelist here. And I know I've been practicing longer than everyone here. Because when Commissioner Ross started, I was already 3 years in. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions. How many Temple University students are here? I'm sorry? That's excellent. Glad that you were here. How many high school students are here? That's right, because I knew your mom ran it. That's actually Brianna. Her mother is one of my paralegals. The reason I ask that is a lot of us old heads, I'm semi-retired, I've been doing this forever. And one reason why I came back from Florida, came back from DC to do this is because of Brother Money. First of all, it was a shame for an African-American judge anywhere to hold Mike Coard in contempt. That made no sense. And when I went in the back room, the sister understood, she came out, and Mike walked out, it wasn't a problem. Because of what he's been doing. But from what I have seen, I come from, just like Leon said, I come from a family, my father came from a family of 21 kids. Down south back in the day. I can remember my dad walking on the street with his family, little white kid coming along and say, he's a big nigger, isn't he? And my dad with his family, my mom's a minister, and we had to cross the street because if my dad would have done something back then in 1961, y'all wouldn't see me here today. But then he explained that to us. Then we could go back to our community. We weren't shooting each other. We weren't killing each other. We may have gotten drunk with a juke joint. We may have had a fight. But this is down in the South. Everybody had a gun in their car and all of that, but we didn't take that out on each other. That self-hate that especially as black males have for each other, we didn't have that back then. We have to tell the truth when we do this.
That's right.
So, family of 6 kids. My father told us, and I'm sure Leon heard the same thing with his father, you got 3 choices here. You're going to go to college, go to the military, or you're going to commit suicide. Because if you don't do one or two, I'm going to kill you. And they meant that. Single parent homes, that mother who was working hard, she said the same thing. That didn't make us better than the younger kids. I actually think the younger kids coming up now have it tougher than we did, because at least we had that guidance. And you were told that. So I went off to the United States Military Academy at West Point. And I was there for 3 long years. But it was great because of that discipline, being in, and also being in the military. And I learned a lot about military mentality. I ended up leaving there, played football there. That's how I became familiar with Philadelphia. Came here every year, loved it at the Army-Navy game. And I played here for 3 straight years. I played when I was a freshman. Then I went to the University of Southern California. I'm not telling you this because I have such an impressive background. No.
But you
listen to the reason why I'm telling you this, though. There's a point to this. Then I left West Point of my own volition, and I went to the University of Southern California. I would have gone to Stanford, but I was accustomed to free money. Nobody paid for school at West Point. Everybody's on a full government scholarship. You know, they're talking about loans and all that. I'm like, what's that? I never heard of that. So USC said, hey, we'll give you free money. Just, you know, be a tutor and a mentor to some of our African-American athletes that we know are going into pros. They're from South Central. I never heard of South Central. What was that about? I found out about it when I had a red bandana in my back pocket and I didn't know anything about games.
Whoa.
So I was obviously an older student, and the only scholarship they had left was in the economics department. So I finished my mechanical engineering degree and I got my economics degree. Got married, had a child while we were out there. Always wanted to be a lawyer. But then I started seeing a lot with the police because I was involved in the Upward Bound program. We had a lot of African American and Hispanic cops who were involved in the program. And I don't say cops as a negative thing, just saying short instead of police. But we never saw white police. When we saw problems, even in South Central, it wasn't with the black cops. It wasn't with the Hispanic cops. We have to tell the truth. A black cop may slap you upside your head because you deserve it. And even if you don't, you can still talk to that brother. But notice you do not hear a black female cop shooting some unarmed suspect or shooting somebody at National Story. You don't hear a black African-American male cop. Oh, he shot some white guy, he shot some black guy, somehow. It does not happen. Because they, and that's one thing we have to understand, that that's a certain amount of empathy there. Oh yeah, we get, because some of our fellow African-American brother cops can be knuckleheads just like some of the people. They stop, but in general, they are not. And we have to understand that. I wish we would have had some white cops here, because the cops can't talk like this, I can. Okay, I represented their boss, Seth Williams, for 3 years, okay? I represented the Riddick brothers, the cops know, police officers know who they are from the Southwest, because the police officers have the Guardian Civic League, and maybe Commissioner Ross will briefly say that, for a reason. Even within the police force, if you're an African-American cop who gets in trouble, there's a whole different discipline for you, an entirely different system. And we have to understand that also as the citizenry. Right? Even though we have an African-American chief of police, you know it galls him when some of the idiots he kicks off the force and they go to arbitration and we see them fools back on the force. It galls him. I've spoken to Chief Ramsey about that. And he doesn't like that, but hey, those are the rules. Now, the reason I say a lot of this is a lot of times when we're talking to the converted, one of the things that we like the converted to do is to pass that forward. Because we know, without knowing your names, where most of you all stand here on these issues. I'm not one of those people who will start off by saying, oh yes, they're a good cop, but that's a given that they're a good cop. Just like there's a given that they are good lawyers when we have lawyers who steal money, who screw up, who get this bar. Okay, it's a given. We don't have to say that. But the reason we say that is we're trying to placate white police officers. Not these brothers who were here. They can't say this, I can. My sister works for the Fort Myers Police Department. Was one of the first African-Americans, first African-American female. I have a cousin, first cousin who's a Secret Service agent, another cousin who's an FBI agent. And they will tell me of a lot of the internal things, you know, when you're at Thanksgiving and Christmas, of what goes on inside. And a lot of times what we on the outside don't understand is how hard it is for them to make it through that system. They're human, they have their frustration. Because we all know, once we leave this room tonight, who is the most powerful man who's going to step out of this door? I say man because there are no female cops here. There's only 3 people who are sitting who are the most powerful people. But the most powerful person on the street is that young man in blue. A regular beat cop who we've given a gun, we've given a constitutional right to arrest anybody he suspects of a crime, not that he sees doing a crime. We've given him the right to shoot and kill. All right, after I left West Point, I still had to do 7 years in the Army, I was in the Army for 10 years. I left as a captain in the reserve. Police officers are shoot center mass. Yes, you shoot to bring the person down, but it's really shoot to kill. All these movies that we see, Rambo, you can shoot him in the eye, you can shoot him in the arm, you can shoot him in the leg. Nobody is that good. You don't have snipers running around. When that adrenaline is flowing and somebody is rolling on that cop, he's thinking about going home, center mass, baby, I'm bringing him down. That's why you do not see, and I say this, and there's nobody who can dispute this, you do not see black cops just blowing away our sons and daughters. It just doesn't happen. Now we have to understand that, so that when we then focus our attention, because police brutality is huge and it's going to become much larger, because we're hiring the wrong people. Part of what we need to do as lawyers, because we reach a certain level, we can't go out in the community like Commissioner Ross or like these 2 brother police officers up here. We just don't have that. Like we said, this place should be filled with people tonight, not because of us, but yes, because of us, of the knowledge that we have, the information that we can give, and the input we got. But the reality is it doesn't happen. That means those of you out there have to move this forward. How do you move this forward so we're not having form after form? Because Qawi was right, Leon was right, and definitely Sister Means was right. Your rights, where you are, it should not matter. We created a card because I represented Labor's Local 332 for 24 years, the only majority black laborers union in the city, and it was Know Your Rights, because we got tired of our construction workers, hardworking brothers, getting off work and getting stopped, primarily by white cops, because we kept track of this. So we got this little card so you can know your rights. But a police officer, when he's stopping you, does not want to hear you recite your rights. Right. And your only job as a person who's stopped, as Leon said in class, is getting home alive. Then we can talk about your rights, we can talk about getting a lawyer, but initially, when you talk to your kids, and you all know it's the truth, you can tell them all about the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8 of the Pennsylvania Constitution, 4th Amendment made applicable by the states to the 14th Amendment, the 5th and the 6th Amendment made applicable by the states. Let a police officer hear that. Oh, you a smart ass, huh? Instead of, a lot of times, you have to de-escalate the situation. And we have to understand that, because it's about survival. But a lot of these young kids, they do not understand that. The reason I asked about the Temple University students is because of what goes on in this area. And there needs to be a lot of those students there. A lot of times when I do these forums, I wish we had more lawyers. A lot of people say we have too many. No, we don't. We have too many bad lawyers. We need more lawyers like Leon and like Deb, who are ascending to the bench, like Coard, who will wear his wrongly. When I first met Coard, I knew his boss very well, because he worked for me briefly. We kind of came up together. And I'm like, he's not doing that Muslim thing in court. I'm being Christian because you're thinking of how people are going to view him. But then once he opened his mouth, it was like, oh yeah, I want to know that brother. He knows what he's doing. He's proud of who he is. And remember, a lot of brothers go to prison, join that Muslim gang. But then when they come out, they got to have someone to talk to, someone to look up to, someone who looks like them, who also sits up here at these panels. That's why I'm glad Mike invited me, because we need that. So the last thing I'm going to say, and I'll stop, is when you say, and part of your job, because this is really about you all, I might know I could care less about doing this and being here. Sean Bell was my cousin who got shot down and killed in New York by majority white cops. Yes, family got a whole bunch of money, but that's irrelevant in those kinds of situations. A lot of times you can think about this, we can talk about this academically, but when it strikes home and you see it there, it comes to fore. But part of what you all need to do, because you are going to be the ones that pass it forward and educate folk. We are not going to educate the police. Commissioner Ross is going to do that. My problem with the police is it has too much of a military mentality. We take too many people from the military and throw them immediately out on the street. You got these young guys from Afghanistan, Iraq, their whole family were police officers, mostly white police officers, but we're probably getting a generation of black police officers who have that legacy. But that's part of the problem. Hey, if you're in Fallujah, you want to go home. So you're getting out of that room. Shoot, kill whoever you have to. And if you're a police officer with that military background, and we have too many, and this doesn't say anything against veterans. I think we need more police officers who are veterans, but we need more of them in administration. But out on the street, you can't have somebody who has a flashback, and that's your child on the opposite end of that. Because your child is maybe a knucklehead or a smart mouth, but a knucklehead or a smart mouth, maybe get a smack, but that doesn't mean you should be killed. Okay? A police officer is supposed to be an expert. When I hear people talking about they didn't know it was a weapon, are you kidding me? They didn't know it was real or not. Please, you know. But when that adrenaline's flowing and those things are going, you haven't properly trained that police officer. Us lawyers can't do that. That's Commissioner Ross. So then what can we do as lawyers on our part? We can make sure, just like Sister Mean said, that we're there, we're available. We can represent folk. We can do forums like this, and hopefully y'all can pass this forward. And the last thing that we can do is put our foot on the neck of politicians. Because we have too many of our politicians, and especially African American ones, who come to us for support, come to us for money, how many fundraisers we have to them, let them get arrested. Did you see one of these brothers and sisters walking next to him before? Absolutely not. All of a sudden, we're not qualified. When a Watson-Stokes or Leon Goodman is running for judge, it should not be a struggle to get on the Philadelphia bench for them. Are you kidding me? But as citizens, you all vote. You all are the gatekeeper who determines. Because remember, that's where, when Sister Means is talking about the Supreme Court, we got the most powerful lost Negro sitting on the bench, Clarence Thomas. But he is powerful because he could be that fifth vote, and he is usually against us. But if you do not have politicians who, and it's not just, oh, hire them because they're black. No, because they're good, right? O.J. Simpson walked because of Johnny Cochran. You understand? He got yelled the lantern and went to jail. Let's be real about this. Also, local politicians who are getting popped, who walking in with, you know, their wonderfully tanned lawyers are going to jail. And a lot of them would not, and Mike knows this, if they would look at some of us here. Not me, I'm out. Mostly these. So that's part of your job as a citizen. Educate yourself, pass it forward, and help us put the foot on the neck of these politicians. Because when 10 of us call them about a particular issue, no matter what it is, oh, a cat crossed the street, I didn't like that. 10 folks call from the Northeast, that politician is returning the calls. We got brothers out here, and the last thing I'll say, last, we have to talk to our sons, and our daughters are starting this nonsense also. We hate each other. We hate each other. I can go and get on the subway and I step on a brother's knee and he wants to jump up and fight me. I have not had a fight since I was 17. But I'm a black belt 3 times over and I'm a boxer and I will hurt you. That's not fighting. But why is that necessary? Why do we even go now? He will look at somebody who looks like him. Old head is uncalled. And he will want to fight me for stepping on his sneakers. In the neighborhood, you all know it. They know it. Brothers look at each other, hate each other. Don't worry about the Klan. And a lot of times we don't like to hear this, but we need to hear this. But this is where you all need to take care of this. It's not the Klan in North Philly. They be bringing in drugs, but it's the Klan that's shooting and killing Jamal, Rahim. Yeah, it's not them. It's another brother who looks like them. And now we got sisters who are doing that. Drop of a hat. They'll fight each other in a second. Take them down to Center City and apply for a job. They're scared shitless, excuse my language. Why? Different environment, they're scared. But boy, in the neighborhood, I'm tough. We have to change that mentality. That's not being tough, that's being weak, because folk want you to do that. Crime goes down, but the incarceration rate increases for us. Middle America can't get any work, but boy, give us a prison. And give us a corporate prison now. Make it non-union. So they're not working there. And get Yahoo, who used to work on the farm, who didn't go to Silicon Valley, and then what do? We just feed them. We just feed them, and then we'll talk about the white man. Oh, no, it ain't the white man. You know, Abdul, Tim, Keisha, Leisha, wonderful names. Don't know a thing about their pride and their history, but boy, we'll fight each other in a second. But go get a job. Learn how to code when you're in the 6th grade. That's the last thing that over. My paralegal, Lauren Warren, who worked for me for a while, she's here with her daughter, Brianna. Here's a mother who, when she started working with us, was going through it. Went to college while working with us. Graduated from Chestnut Hill College, 4 years in the night program. Showing her kids, okay? She lives not far from here, right down the street. Showing her kids by example. And they have interaction with their father, but she is the one. And showing them by example. You don't have to beat the hell out of your kids and all that. Doesn't work. But showing, even though you will do that, but showing by example, that will then having them love each other. Brothers will go and they give each other that, and then they shoot each other. And then talk about the cop. I don't please put no gun on you. Why did you shoot? I don't even ask. After my 112 jury trial, it just got tiring. Because when you're trying to show them all this other stuff they're really facing, it's like, don't help. Don't help people kill you. And then we can really do something about the problem. Because all it takes is that one case. That Negro who's talking about he's avenging somebody, and he goes and shoots 2 police officers sitting in their car. And he think we're gonna say, oh yeah, brother. No, Negro, we're gonna be beating you behind and hope you go to hell, and then I will kick your butt every day. What are you doing? And then the other side picks up that one case, and that drives a wedge. Because those police officers were trying to get home. So that's what we have to remember. What your job is, what you get out of forums like this. So that 30 years from now, we're talking about a totally different subject. Thank you.
Let's keep things moving. As I pointed out during my introduction, First Deputy Police Commissioner Richard J. Ross Jr., not just a good police officer, but just a nice gentleman. And if I have anything good to say about cops, I will say there's probably only 3 good cops in Philly. 1, 2, 3. And he's certainly #1 on the list. Let's give him a big round of applause.
All right, so first of all, let me just say to Mr. Coard, you know, when he invited, I had to come. Just a little background. I've sat on more panels with him than I think either of us can count. But one of the very first ones I sat on was a rather contentious one, and unfortunately it was here. And the moderator, by the time I got midway through, that whole group was attacking me. It got so bad that he had to save me, literally. Larry and I joke about this, and that is a true story. I mean, so when Michael Coard's got to jump in and save the police or something like that, I'm not making that up. So to you, kudos to you. So when he calls, I come. But seriously, he really has been here, and I thank you for this. And one of the reasons I do sit on these panels, despite how they can be a little contentious, because I often find myself one of the only, today I'm the only non-lawyer, but usually I'm one of the only ones who has a position that I have. But I was glad to hear some of the things you folks said. So you said a lot of things that I would normally say, so I won't go there. So let me start by saying this very briefly. Clearly, using a lawyer term, I will stipulate to the fact that we are not perfect. And we have a lot of work to do, and I don't think anybody who really is going to be truthful and honest would argue that fact. We have some folks in our ranks that clearly probably shouldn't be here, just like every other organization does. We work very hard to try to build trust, but in police departments across this country, that's something where we are falling short. I will say that arguably, it's something that really has to be worked on, probably more than anything else, this issue of trust in communities of color, because it is lacking. It is something we're working on. Some of you may have heard a term called police legitimacy, where it can mean a lot of things, but by and large, making sure the people that you serve understand that your processes are fair, the manner in which you deal with things like police brutality, allegations, police shootings, and my commissioner, long before these cases you heard of came to bear, he brought the Justice Department in, specifically to look at our police shootings. This wasn't as a result of Garner, it wasn't as a result of anything else. To say, do we have legitimacy? Is our training the way it should be? Are our investigations fair? And so the Justice Department is working with us to revamp how we do all this. And a lot of this was spearheaded first in Las Vegas. They took a lot of these. This is a very exhaustive report, but it just goes to the basic tenets of doing things right and making people feel good about the police department that serves them. One of the things that I struggle with, and I say to young police officers all the time, sometimes it appears to me that we've gotten to a point where some of us think we exist to serve ourselves and not the community that we're sworn to protect and serve. And so that's an issue for me. I will say this, that in the interest of fairness, whether some folks like it or not, I have some white officers who give their heart and soul more than some black cops that I have. I mean, who really will give it all and lay it all on the line. It's also a matter of who you are and what your integrity is. And so, for us, there's this issue of just working together. The commissioner in New York City, a guy named Bill Bratton, is going through all kind of mess, and I wouldn't want his problems for all the money in the world right now. But he is kind of a guru in policing, and he wrote a book recently called Collaborate or Perish. And he's talking about if we don't work together, then we're not, look, the police are going to be here, and the communities are going to be here. So if we don't work together, then there's going to be an issue regardless of how we want to write this thing up. We can argue all day long, but the fact of the matter is that there has to be true partnership. We have to do things on our end that suggest we understand. We have to have that empathy for the communities that we serve, and if we don't, it's going to be a problem. The same thing has to happen coming back this way, and that's one of the reasons, again, I sit on these panels. One interesting thing that I like to do or talk about, and some of these folks have engaged in this, when we break down some of these young boys in particular who have been taken into custody on probation, and they go through these programs, and we do these mock kind of role plays. Now they become the police officer. You'd be surprised at how aggressive they become, because instantly they start to get in the mindset, oh, whoa, I don't know you. Put your hands on the wall. You know what I mean? And some of the very things that they say they don't understand from the perspective of the police officer, but in that mock role play, instantly, the light bulb goes on. And so what I'm talking about is just that open dialogue that kind of creates an understanding. Look, we may never understand it. If you've never stopped the car at 3 o'clock in the morning, you may think you understand that, you know, but you may truly never get it. But at least if you can try to open up your mind. My struggle right now with the climate that we're in with police and community relations over these cases that have gotten a lot of attention is that, like anything, the loudest people tend to be on the left and the far right. So police are the worst things in the world, or cops can't do no wrong. And clearly, that's not going to get us anywhere at all. So that kitchen table conversation that you talked about, Madam President, is real. But it's got to be a real dialogue. And yes, there should be white police officers at that table. There should be all people at that table, but who are willing to listen, honestly listen to one another without formulating their preconceived notions about what it is that they want. And even in dialogues like this, I'll be honest with you, and I'm gonna close with this. One of the struggles I tend to have in some settings like this is that people tend to have groupthink sometimes. And so I'll be in a dialogue like this where I'm the only police officer and everybody wants to clap at everything that is anti-police. And then when I'm walking out the door, I got 10 people telling me how great I'm doing. You know, I mean, well, you know, you didn't say that before. So, I mean, I can't believe that you really believe that. And so I'm just getting at the notion of being honest about where we are, because guess what? The reality of it is whether we like it or not, this will come later. Some of our most disenfranchised neighborhoods, we also have some of the most conservative thinking people of color in the West. So let's be honest about that. Who will tell you, bring the police to my neighborhood because I want them. You know, because I don't want them boys terrorizing my neighborhood. So at the end of the day, dialogue is what we need. I'm glad to be here, so I'm going to pass it on to you.
We certainly appreciate the comments of everybody. Certainly what the Deputy Commissioner just laid out to you was right on point. And I really like what he said about how there are often extremes. People on the far left, I plead guilty, people on the far right, and there has to be some middle ground somewhere, so we certainly appreciate that. Next, I want to reintroduce to you soon to be judge, currently a DA, Deborah Watson-Stokes. Give her a big round of applause.
A long time waiting for my turn, so I'm ready to stand up. This is a Know Your Rights program, but the most important right that we have is the right to be safe, is the right to live. That's right. The right to live, that's the basic right. We as African Americans in our own community are killing each other at alarming rates. You know, so I am glad to be here to talk about police brutality. But I'm going to break away for just a second, because where have you all been when we have been killing each other? Where you been? I didn't sit in a seminar. I haven't heard a word. But I've been with the mothers in the courtroom. And the interesting thing about it, I had one mother on one side, her son got killed, I'm on her side. The next week, her nephew got killed, I'm on her side. See, that killing thing go around. So the point, since we having some truth, is that let's dialogue about police brutality, okay? But in every conversation, we need to pull our pants down and deal with what's going on in our own communities and in our own black yard, okay? You know, we condone anti-snitch. Oh, don't tell. All right, until it's your relatives. You know, and then everybody come to me, they say, Miss Stokes, we know you good. Do what you gonna do. How Miss Stokes gonna do what she gonna do and ain't no witness? You know what I'm saying? Some of you all got relatives, and this is the hypothetical view, this is not the real view, okay? Some of y'all got relatives that got 40s and 9s and so on and so forth in the house. All right? 95% of the kind of murderers that I deal with, if they didn't have that gun, for 5 seconds, somebody would have lived. So you know what? We have the right to bear arms, you know. I feel you come in my house, you know what it is. All right, you know what it is. But what I'm saying to you is that we gotta get rid of these guns in our neighborhood. You know, and we got to stop glorifying these guns, because what's happening is our young men are picking them up, you know, and they are trying to be men with these guns, you know, and they are killing each other at alarming rates. You know, all of us here, You know, I've worked with everyone on this panel. You know what I mean? Doing homicides, you know, Mr. Nattiel taught me, you know, how to be a lawyer, beat me up, and let me learn some things. You know what I mean? Mr. Coard, we've done cases together, Mr. Rahman, you know, police commissioner, I work with his homicide people. But murder is a killer. We got to stop killing each other. Now let's talk about the grand jury system. People joke and they say, you know what, oh, you know, the prosecutor's the bad guy. But what would have happened in Trayvon Martin's case if the prosecutor looked like me? What would have happened in these grand juries cases? Because the prosecutor, do you understand, controls the process in the grand jury. You understand? You have no say if you are not making the decisions. And make no mistake about it, the DA's office are the ones that make the decisions. So as opposed to saying, hey, we don't want African Americans to be prosecutors, the opposite has to be true. You want as many as humanly possible in there when the decisions are being made to charge. When the decisions are being made, you know, to bring a grand jury. When the decisions are being made as to what witnesses are going to call. When the decisions are being made about life and death, whether or not we seek the death penalty or we don't seek the death penalty. What plea decision to be given? I only got 2 minutes, so I'm going to sit down because you all came, you know, to ask your questions. But the only thing I'm saying to you is that all of us, we got to work together, and we should be everywhere. There should be no place, no place. We should be on the bench. We should be police officers. We should be sheriffs. We should be in the prisons. We should be everywhere. We should be defense attorneys. And it's you all's responsibility to put us there. You know, we've studied, we've learned, we're ready, we're prepared. It's you all's responsibility to back us up and do what we need to do. Let's clean up our own back.
Let's give Deborah a big round of applause. Let's keep things moving. Next up, Leon Goodman answering the very same question. What should people do and not do when stopped by police?
Just piggybacking on what's already been said, the video camera. That is probably the most powerful weapon that exists. And one of the things that I would suggest is, if you're going to use it, especially if you have the modern phones, hold it like this, as opposed to like this, because you get a widescreen, just like you will on your television, which helps to give a better view for anybody that's ultimately viewing it. Think about the cases, in particular the young man up in New York. How do we even find out about that case? Somebody whipped out a camera and started videoing. During my time period when I was in the Philadelphia Housing Authority, I worked with the police department there, and one of the things that I was tasked to do was to upgrade their directives. They mirrored the Philadelphia police, and under both agencies, the officers are told, you're allowed to be videotaped. The U.S. Supreme Court has said the exact same thing. And as Deb Watson-Stokes said, don't interfere, but whip that camera out and start videoing. Don't get into the middle of the arrest. Be the witness.
And don't talk during the video. Shut up.
Yes, please. And even if you're not sure what to do with it, put the video up on YouTube. But make it a point to say the time, the date, and the location of what you're seeing there. Because people will look, do research on certain situations, and that will pop up to give that evidence in terms of what happened. To help to give that clear example. So if somebody is in the wrong, if there is brutality, that video is going to capture it. One of the reasons I think everyone was so outraged about what happened in New York City was when that young man who was selling used Lucy's, and Lucy's don't mean you should die, but he was selling Lucy's, and what did he do? He didn't fight. He simply, I'm not doing anything. Had there been no video, what do you think would have been said about him?
Wow.
He resisted. Well, you each had the opportunity to view it. Did you see resistance there? And again, the video spoke more than any person who was out there. And that was part of the reason why I would suggest so many of us were outraged by that, because that man just said, I'm not doing anything. And then he said, I can't breathe. But he wasn't resisting. The video 1,000 words. The clearest thing in the world. The other things that were mentioned by Deputy Commissioner Ross, very true. On traffic stops, the officer has the power of life and death in his hands. And the question simply becomes, how are you going to deal with it? Do you really want to start a case there where you may not come out of that? I joke with my father because one of the trips that we took south, and he'll remember this. We got stopped in a little backwoods town in the middle of South Carolina. I have my little sports car, so you know we were cruising. It was about 8, 9 o'clock at night. It was in the winter, pitch black. All of a sudden, as we're on this little 2-lane, my rear lights up, blue lights everywhere. And he will tell you to this day, immediately I remember the things that I was taught. Pulled over, hit the dome lights. Dad, put your hands up on the counter. I put my hands on the steering wheel, and we didn't move until that officer told us what we could do. Why? Not because of the fact that I wanted to cow and I wanted to just, you know, not stand up for myself. But at that moment, I'm thinking, I don't want to get shot. We're in the middle of nowhere, South Carolina, and if something happens, it's going to be his word, and we're not going to be able to speak. And we walked out of that without a ticket. Maybe it was because I was the DA at that time, or maybe it was because of the fact that we handled it in a way that the officer took no threat, he gave us a warning and told us to go on about our way. Oftentimes interactions can be ended just like that. At PHA, one of the things that I did there was I helped to train the new officers when they built up that police force. We talked about that type of stuff in terms of de-escalation, the fact that they could be videoed, things of that sort. Not because of the fact that we were trying to intimidate the officers, but to make them aware that everything that they did was under scrutiny. And because they were new, even more scrutiny. And at this point, I haven't heard of any situation, so you know what I'm thinking? Maybe some of that stuff actually worked. But again, it all comes down to that interaction. How you present yourself. And remember, the battle is not right there on the street when your life is in jeopardy. The battle is at a later time. And there's no shame in saying, you know what? Going along with it. Because in the end, if they're wrong, you will get your reward. They will have to pay. And the best part about it is, you'll be alive to enjoy something.
Well said. Same question goes to Attorney Abdul-Rahman. What should people do and not do when encountered by police?
I like one statement that our esteemed president said. They woke the lion up. We have a society now of young people who are what they say are not afraid to die. Do y'all know what that means when you're not afraid to die? When during the 60s, the people have no more gray in their beard. Remember the time when you had sit-ins and bust-ins and the like, and you wasn't afraid to die for what you thought was the right cause. But you thought it was a right cause because someone told you it was a right cause. Now we live in 2014 and 15. You have young people not afraid to die. They don't know what the hell they're dying for. Right. So what's even more scary for a police officer? Shit, what's more scary for me and you? We've been talking all day about how we have to police ourselves. And we're not policing ourselves because it was a time that a lot of this foolishness wouldn't happen. There would be no shootings at a playground and a basketball game and the like. It wouldn't happen, and it didn't happen. But we have a couple questions to deal with that. One, where the hell these guns coming from? Yes. I watched a movie the other day that had me in tears. Kill the Messenger. It talked about the cocaine that came into South Central and how it turned and destroyed our communities. And how the CIA said, I don't know what the hell y'all talking about. Until later on, it came all out. So now we have this lion awakened because these young people are not afraid to die, but they don't know what they're dying for. So yes, police, we have some rights, but they look at that as well. So when Trayvon Martin happened, I told someone, I said, listen, I practiced law in Miami for 5 years. Think about the idea of people who come in the community and are afraid of you. It wouldn't have been an Indian kid or a Chinese kid because they would have went at them a different way. But because it was a black kid who they are afraid of, I have to protect myself. And I can't talk it out. And that's the same thing that police officers go through when they stop a car and you in your gangster mode or whatever. But outside of trying to get home safely, don't have a damn gun in the car. I don't care if it's legal. Don't have a gun in the car, because when they say they thought they see you reaching, and you just happen to have a gun in the car, I tell my clients all the time, you was arrested, not me. You wanna know why? Because they didn't think I did nothing. We must take some responsibility, but more importantly, we must do better at what we're doing in our community to educate each other. So it's not about rights. It's about, again, understanding and implementing things enough times that it's habit for you. And when it's habit for you, it's easy for you to do. It sounds good that we want you not to agitate the police officer, talk to the police officer in a proper way. But if you cuss your mama out, police, you don't stand a chance. Thank you.
Let's give a big round of applause. And in terms of housekeeping, you can see from the agenda, we wanted 4 questions answered from the panel, but we're only going to have this one because we're going to turn it over to you in just a second to pose your questions. And we want to now wrap up this part of the program in terms of what people should do and not do when stopped by police. I want that question addressed by President Pamela Means, and also to talk about, because the name of this once again is Know Your Rights, because it could save your life. And a few of the panelists pointed out that it's not all about rights, and that's true, but it is essentially about rights. I mean, rights is the key issue here, because if you didn't have the rights, then none of this stuff would matter. So when panelists say it's not about rights, I assume they mean it's not exclusively about rights, but certainly rights play a role. And we're going to hear that addressed not only by the president of the National Bar Association and an attorney, but also a mother. So what's your answer in those 3 regards?
I'm gonna go quick because I want to hear from you, because actually, I do know your situation with the black mayor and with the black police chief, and you still got a bad problem up here in Philly. And what makes me the maddest as a mother sitting on this panel is that I do have to go home and tell my child, you got rights that you can't exercise. Because ain't no white parent having that conversation with their child. So it angers me that what they saying is kind of correct. But it is about your rights. It is about your rights. And it's about you demanding. I disagree with this brother when he says they don't know what they're willing to die for. I'm going to tell you, the kids in Ferguson understand that if they shut up, they the next Mike Brown on the street. Because they've been dealing with it for a long time. And folks just been telling them, if you do this and if you do that, then they won't. But there was one brother who the police said, reach in your pocket and get your ID. He said, is it okay to reach? It's okay to reach, it's on video. And the cops start shooting him. What you shooting me for? I'm just doing what you told me. So even when you do all of that, they may still throw you away. That tells us we got a problem. So here's what I want you to do. 1, shut your mouth up when the cops come talk to you. What do I mean? Shut up. I don't care how angry you are, because everything you do and say, they'll use it against you, whether the stop was proper or not. One brother protesting in Missouri got so angry, they arrested him for blowing out a window or a store. And you know what he said to him? Yeah, I did it. And guess what? That's called a confession. On tape, that's called 25 years and a felon. So now these brothers can't do nothing for you, but kind of negotiate it down. Number 2, know that they ain't got a right to search no part of you. I wouldn't roll my window all the way down. I lock my door when they call me. I roll it half, a little bit down so they can talk to me. I keep my hands on the wheel because police are trained, all right, to understand and to protect themselves. So I was taught by cops that as they're walking toward your car, their hand is on their gun. Not because they don't like you or because you're black, that's their training. So if you move, they're gonna assume Don't give them no reason to assume. Stay still. Don't reach for nothing. I agree. Let them tell you. But don't consent for them to take or do anything. Even when they arrest you, they don't have a right to impound your stuff. The law says you have a right to tell them, can I have reasonable time to call somebody and get my belongings? Now trust me, cops have the right to lie to you. They have a right to bully you and to get as much out of you as they can. It's just the art of trying to get to what they consider to be the truth. I want to tell you this. Download the ACLU app. If you haven't done that, do it now. I'm not into, it's on the back of this. I'm not into just do what the NBA says or the ACLU. No, their app works. I ain't trying to create one. What happens is when you download it, you start videoing it, you start taping it, it immediately goes to their center. And even if they take your stuff, the video is preserved. Why do I say that? Because in a traffic stop in Miami, brother pulled over to the side, 12 cops surround him, shooting his car 144 times. Another brother is videotaping. Cop comes, put the pistol up to his, give me your camera now. Brother took out the chip, put it in his mouth. That's how the tape was preserved. So, download the app. You want to know how to properly videotape an officer? Go to the police that Michael Coard has out. It gives you the whole parameters of how the distance you need to be for them.
F stands
It don't
for
mean, it don't mean. I was getting to that. It doesn't mean what you think. But here's the other thing I want you to do. Can you become outraged for me and stay outraged? Police brutality ain't nothing new. The Black Panthers was formed. Now, I do agree that we gotta clean our own house, but I think we gotta stop combining these issues. Because no black brother is paid to protect me. And no black brother, when he shoot another black brother, is gonna get off 98% of the time. It's a different housekeeping issue. I agree, but when we combine those issues, we give them excuses for not dealing with the issue. Because my little 14-year-old boy is as dark as he is, but my husband taught him to be self-confident about who he is. And my black son may look at you the wrong way, and you may think he's a thug. I'm trying to tell you, when he does and you shoot him, the lawyer ain't coming out in me. We got a problem. Become outraged. And stop, don't be so nice and quiet when we gotta tell you, and we don't like it when we gotta tell you this, but it's the truth. Your job is to make it home. But you ought to be outraged that we're sitting up here with all these years of experience and we have to tell you, you got some rights you can exercise. Sound like the 60s to me, sound like Jim Crow, sound like Black Code. I'm sorry. And the reason I say it is because I have a 14-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And I'm away from them tonight because it matters to me. I want to keep my son. And I don't want to see the pain in my son's eye that I saw when Michael Brown's killer was not indicted. There was a bitterness that set up in my son that had nothing not to do with home training. Maybe we live on a golf course. He got both parents at home. Daddy is a preacher. So, community, they are looking for us to make it a moment. Make it a movement. Because only when we didn't shut up, that's the reason why they dealt with the problem. So I applaud the young people, but I'm going to take their energy and turn it into some laws. And so that one day we'll have this discussion where we won't have to say, it's your rights, but you can't exercise them. So that's what I say. Read this sheet right here. Because if you don't know these laws right here, somebody said, well, if I can't exercise, why do I need to? I need you to know because I do need you to shut up. I do need you not to move when the cop approach you. I do need you to know that they can't search your stuff. Don't consent. Don't think you can talk your way out of something with the cops. So I'm going to tell you what, I watch cops. And white folks tell them their rights all the time. And then tell them, ew. Hell no, I ain't rolling down the window. What? I'm going to film you. And when we do it, you gotta ask, it's a different standard. And you know what they do? When we talk about cleaning up our own backyard, they paint all of us with one brush. But when we start painting them with one brush, that's a problem. I told you, they woke us up. That's a problem.
I don't know how they, let's give a round of applause.